never dies.
Too late to
Roaring bowstrings. So we E always before the ultimate,
Wind is from the bow.
right? And as such, we are getting 7 layers, 1 arrow. Hello Trailblazers, so today we're going to be talking about Yukong. She's the first 4-star imaginary character that has just been released in version 1.1 for Honkai Star Rail. Now do remember, if you guys did end up getting unlucky and didn't get her on the Luocha banner, she will be a free character in 1.2, so do not worry, don't stress about it. She will be coming soon. But we're going to be discussing the entire kit. She's a very good Harmony character, able to increase your party's attack percent as well as their crit and crit damage, and on top of that, she can also be a decent damage dealer and a phenomenal shield breaker at that. So without further ado, let's hop into this full in-depth guide. We're going to be talking light cones, trace materials to prioritize to level up and focus on, relics for different scenarios and situations, and of course her Eidolons and team comps. So first, let's dive into the light cones. Let's first of all start with the only 5-star Harmony light cone, but the battle isn't over, Bronya's light cone. This is jam-packed with a lot of stuff, and dare I say, the best Harmony light cone for pretty much every Harmony character. You're getting energy regeneration rate by 10%. This is at S1, and you're also regenerating a skill point whenever you're using your ultimate. So you already have energy regen, you're replenishing skill points as well. Also, you're able to give the next ally taking action 30% more damage whenever you're using your skill. So as long as you're speed tuning your Yukong and making sure after you use your skill ability that the next character taking action is your DPS, either erudition, destruction, or hunt, then this is also a huge plus. Now, there is a like miniature version of But the Battle Isn't Over, in the sense of you're able to get that next ally taking action with increased damage, and that's pretty much it. Past and future, it's the 4-star free light cone you're able to get from the Forgotten Hall shop, so you're easily able to get this to S5 because it also drops from weekly bosses if you get lucky. That's 32%. Not bad. Pretty good. You're missing out on the energy regen and the skill point replenishing, but also not a bad thing. This is a perfect light cone for Bronya, but you can also run on other Harmony characters. Again, just make sure you are speed tuning and making sure that Yukong is going first, and then your DPS will go second. Of course, there are some things that you have to look out for, some inconsistencies like enemies delaying your action and stuff like that if they are immobilized and set back, aka like imprisoned or entangled, stuff like that. So my personal favorite 4-star light cone that I would recommend and go for, which is a very simple one and easy to go with, is Dance Dance Dance. You can't beat Dance Dance Dance. It's a very broad, universal light cone you can run on everyone. Very simple to use, straightforward. Whenever you're using your ultimate, all allies' actions are advanced forward by 16%. Clean. That's it. Very simple. I love it. Everyone loves it. Great light cone. I'd recommend running that on Yukong if you do have her. There are a lot of other good 4-star light cones we're going to get into. Memories of the Past. You're increasing the wearer's break effect by 28%, and she will most likely be the one to break the enemy if you are going up against enemies who are weak to imaginary. Because of her talent, 7 layers, she's getting increased toughness reduction or break on the enemy. You're also regenerating energy back every time you're attacking, 1 time per turn. So Memories of the Past is also a light cone you might want to look into for your 4-star option. If you have the Battle Pass, Carve the Moon is also really great, giving all allies randomly either attack percent, crit damage, or energy regeneration rate. And of course, we have Planetary Rendezvous if you're trying to run a mono imaginary team comp. I don't think there's that many imaginary characters currently in the game yet, so you might want to hold off on that unless you're trying to build Luocha and Yukong with maybe say like a silver in the team comp. That could be it. But I can also see this being a very good light cone for Yukong because one of her traces also increases imaginary damage for everyone in the party, which we'll get into a little bit later on throughout this video. So overall, most of the light cones are pretty good on her depending on the type of situation you want to go with. There's also some 3-stars I want to throw in here. Honorable mentions. Chorus, after entering the battle, increases all allies by 8%. You could run that if you so wish. And Meshing Cogs here, it's like a miniature version of the Memories of the Past. If you don't have that, after the wearer attacks or gets hit, regenerates 4 energy 8 energy at S5. Just like how Memories of the Past, you're getting energy after you attack, you're also getting the 8 at S5. So it's like a miniature version of that in a sense. So my recommendations for 4 stars would be Dance 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 as my priority. Memories of the Past I'd be looking into, and Past and Future. Battle Pass, if you have it, not everyone does. And Planetary Rendezvous, again, situational if you're running a mono imaginary team comp. Okay, moving on over to the traces here for Yukong. The main 2 you want to focus on is going to be her ultimate and her skill. Hopefully you are leveling these both up at the same exact time. So her ultimate is how you're increasing your crit and crit damage for your party, as well as dealing some exceptional imaginary damage on top of that, like a cherry on top. Skill is how you're increasing all of your allies' attack percent, which you will be wanting to use your skill ability before you use your ultimate in order to get the crit and crit damage benefits. So you're going to make sure you always want a skill before your ultimate. Level the skill and the ultimate at the same time. Both of those are really worth to focus on. After that, I would focus on the talent 7 layers, because you will be auto attacking every so often. Believe it or not, you don't want to E every single time on a Yukong. Now, a lot of people's issues with Yukong is she's very skill point hungry, and that's true. I also thought she was very skill point hungry. However, I feel like the optimal way in order to play Yukong would be using your E ability and then getting 7 layers, 1 arrow, the ability, the active, to have that toughness reducing damage for 1 turn, attack an enemy who has imaginary weakness so you can break their shield, and then go back and use your E. So you're going to be Eing into an auto attack, into your skill, into your auto attack, into skill, into ultimate. That's ideally the play. And then after your ult, you start with the basic attack again, back into the skill, so on and so forth. You just want to make sure you always use your skill before your ultimate. And then also make sure that you're using your auto attack when 7 layers are up. Unless you're in a situation where you desperately need 1 more extra skill point because your other DPS is going to be dishing out the damage, then skill point management will be on your end on that. But that's the ideal play. So level up the ultimate first, level up the skill, get those 2 as a top priority. Talent 7 layers and basic attack as your next, because she does do some decent damage, I'll say, some exceptional damage as a quote unquote sub DPS. In terms of bonus traces, I do like the one that Yukong resists 1 debuff for 1 time, and it can be triggered again every 2 turns. We also have the energy gain back as well when Bowstrings is active, which will be active more times than not, regenerating 2 additional energy every time an ally takes actions, so 4 energy back. Pretty good. As well as Bowmaster, like I said, for the mono imaginary team comp that we could be possibly running in the future when more imaginary characters come out. You're increasing imaginary damage for all by 12%. Really good. I'd also recommend picking up these bonus traces here, stat bonuses for the imaginary damage, because again, she does do exceptional damage, so keep that in mind. Just one last note for the traces. If we're talking about the skill and the roaring bowstrings, you're getting 2 stacks, right? So your next 2 characters are getting and benefiting from the increased attack percent and or the crit and crit damage if you have that activated. So you do want to make sure you are speed tuning just a little bit to make sure that your next characters are going to be your DPS. And if you're using Yukong, it's not going to be someone like Natasha and Japard who's benefiting from that attack percent and the crit and crit damage, because I'll be honest, they probably don't need it as much as your like Su Shang, Dan Hong, Yan Qing, etc. So make sure you do speed tune just a teeny bit to make sure that the characters who are obtaining the stacks of roaring bowstrings are your DPS characters. Let's talk about relics. There are 2 sets I want to recommend here: the Thief of Shooting Meteor and the Musketeer of Wild Wheat. Now, this is going to depend and go back and forth depending on your situation. The Thief set is really good because, like I recommended and said before, her 7 layers, 1 arrow talent is giving her phenomenal break chance. So you're having toughness reducing damage on your basic attack with 7 layers, and you're also increasing your break effect by 32%, as well as regenerating energy and delaying the enemy even more so. So much that they might not even take a turn on that current cycle and might have to wait until the next cycle with a 4-piece thief set. Now, if you are running up against enemies, and I say this for all my thief characters, I said it for the Asta guide as well. If you're going up against an enemy who is not weak to imaginary damage for any reason, because you're not running against an enemy who's weak to imaginary damage, but you still want to bring Yukong in the party because she does provide attack percent, crit and crit damage. The buffs are still going to be there. Musketeer is a good general set to run, so I have to think about this. I recommended this the same way that I did for Asta. A lot of people go up against a character like Kafka, for example. They bring in their Zila, they bring in their Walt, they bring in Asta. She never gets a turn. You still want to use Asta for that kit, the attack increase and her speed increase, same way you would like to use Yukong for her attack increase and her crit and crit damage increase. She is more than just a shield breaker. She's a harmony character at the end of the day. Keep that in mind. She's a great buffer. So depending on your situation, decide between Thief set and decide between Musketeer. And hell, maybe you just want your quantum character or your physical character to break the enemies instead, and you don't even care about your imaginary break. Can't go wrong with either of these two sets. We did some testing. The damage numbers are more or less around the same, within like 400 damage off, and that's it. Thief kind of pulled ahead just a little bit, but I wanted to give you guys all the situations so you guys can make a more confident decision is what I'm trying to say. Yes, let's go with that. Okay, now quickly talking about the main stats here. Very simple. HP, attack, crit damage. Yes, she does deal a decent amount of damage, and her abilities don't really scale off of attack like Ting Yun, so now you can just kind of work with what you want to work with in terms of your stats. So crit damage here. Speed boots, of course, as always. Imaginary damage and energy regeneration rate. I still recommend running the Von Whack for the energy 5%, or Fleet of the Ageless if you want to run that as a secondary for the attack percent gain for your entire teammates. In terms of substats, I focus on speed, obviously. Go with crit damage, and the last one can either be like attack percent, break effect, depending on what you want to go. Probably break effect. All right, so stepping into the Eidolons really quickly. E1, increase allies speed by 10% for 2 turns. Really good at the start of the battle. That's just a one-time at the beginning. E2 is really good because Yukong is able to give herself 5 energy every time one of your characters get their energy to maximum. Basically, once their energy is full and they have their ultimate, Yukong is also getting 5 energy. E4, whenever Roaring Bowstrings is active, which is your skill ability, Yukong will deal 30% more damage to enemies. Now, more times than not, unless you're building super max speed on her, you might not really have Roaring Bowstrings active when she's able to take her turn again, aka her auto attack. However, because you are going to be using Roaring Bowstrings before you pop your ultimate, you'll still be doing 30% more damage on your ult, guaranteed. So that's a huge dub, a huge plus. E5 is increasing your ult +2. And then E6, whenever Yukong uses her ultimate, she will immediately gain 1 stack of Roaring Bowstrings. So a +1 right there. Overall, all good. E4 kind of pops off because you're able to dish out additional damage, 30% more on your ultimate, and she does do a decent amount of damage with her ultimate. She can be a good harmony character, a good quote-unquote sub DPS, in my opinion. A good 4-star harmony character that I would recommend leveling up and building to bring to your team comp. Now, speaking of team comps, I want to just briefly mention some of the 4-stars that I've been testing with, and some characters that you may want to avoid bringing her in a party with. And I'm thinking of Dan Heng. So Dan Heng is the Hunt 4-star character in the Honkai Star Rail. He has a trace, superiority of reach. Whenever Daniel is the target of an ally's ability, his next attack, wind penetration, will be increased by 27%. This cannot be triggered again for 2 turns. This does not work with Yukong, however. Now, Yukong targets herself when she uses her skill ability, which means that Daniel is not the target of her ability. Daniel will still receive, Miss Dan Heng will still receive the attack buff and the crit buff from her ultimate, but does not benefit from the wind penetration. The only way you're able to get the wind penetration is characters like Japard for his shield, Natasha for her E or ultimate. Fire main character doesn't work either for the taunt, even though you do get the defense or the mini shield. Ting Yun works. March 7th shield works. Characters like that. Asta's ultimate. Yukong does not work with Dan Heng. So I wouldn't recommend running Dan Heng with Yukong unless you just want to benefit from the crit damage buff or the attack buff. You're not getting that wind penetration. And in my opinion, I think the wind penetration is really good. Another character I probably wouldn't be running with my Yukong, just because it may or may not be skill point heavy, depending on how you're looking at it, is Jing Yuan. Now, Jing Yuan is another character who needs to constantly use E every time it's his turn because he needs to keep building stacks for Lightning Lord, right? I might not want to do that with Yukong because, as many people have already started to figure out and say, Yukong might be very skill hungry. Now, it might be a little bit manageable if you're doing the technique that I said, using skill into the auto attack and just alternating between those two. I'd recommend doing that to conserve your skill points, but I wouldn't recommend in a Jing Yuan team either. At that point, I'd probably recommend just go Ting Yun. Ting Yun is a much better pair to go with Jing Yuan. You pop your E on Jing Yuan, and then you just have to attack 3 times, I believe, with Ting Yun. Very skill point efficient and not skill hungry compared to Yukong. Okay, so finishing up with a team comp build, you could theoretically run her in a team comp that does counter, like Clara or like March. The counter for her bowstring does not consume the stack, so every time Clara counters, it's not going to consume a stack of bowstring, meaning you're able to dish out a hell of a lot more damage because of that. So that could be a very strong team comp. Of course, a mono imaginary team comp is something I'm looking forward to in the future. She's a harmony character. She buffs your teams. Just think about the skill point management. I want to combo her with Luocha because Luocha is a very skill point net positive character in the sense of you pretty much just need to auto attack with Luocha. He's generating you a skill point every single turn. Yukong, as some people like to say, is skill point hungry, so might want to be on the lookout for that. But comboing with Luocha in any single team comp, you can't go wrong with that. It'll definitely help out her skill point management in regards to that. But other than that, I think she's a fine character. She's a very good, strong 4-star harmony character. Let me know what you guys think about her. Let me know how you guys are building her and what team comps you are running her in. Hopefully this video was helpful or informative to any of you guys who are watching this. Feel free to join us over on Twitch. We are live every single day. Ask us any questions down in the comments or ask us on Twitch. Would love to. God, my throat fucking closed on me at the last second. Also, remember, Yukong is going to be free in 1.2. If you guys did not get her in 1.1, don't feel pressure. Don't feel FOMO rolling on her banner. Be patient. Wait. She will come. Your time will come. All right? Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.